Welcome to our channel. Today we are going to study a part of biology known as applications of genetics. We are going to study this part of biology with questions and answers for a better understanding. The first question we have here says, the knowledge of genetics is highly useful in solving problem of food shortage through dash A. Plant breeding, B. Hemolysis, C. Plasmolysis, D. Osmosis. In this question, the correct answer is A. Plant breeding. Plant breeding is a process of improving different varieties of plants in order to get the best traits from them. The knowledge of genetics is highly useful in solving problem of food shortage through plant breeding. The problem of food shortage in the society can be solved through plant breeding programs in order to get food or plants with high yield. The next question says, the ability of a plant breeder to practice plant breeding successfully depends on his or her outstanding knowledge of dash A. Animal reproductive system, B. Animal excretory system, C. Plant reproductive system, D. None of the above. In this question, the correct answer is C. Plant reproductive system. The ability of a plant breeder and a geneticist to practice plant breeding successfully depends on his or her outstanding knowledge of plant reproductive system. Plant breeding cannot be practiced without understanding the details of plant reproductive system. So the ability of an individual to have a good knowledge of plant reproductive system will help him or her to practice plant breeding successfully. The next question says, which of the following is aim of a plant breeder? A. To produce plants that are resistant to diseases. B. To produce plants that are resistant to pests. C. To produce plants with better nutritional value. D. All of the above. In this question, the correct answer is D. All of the above. There are different aims of a plant breeder. One of the aims of plant breeding is to produce plants that are resistant to diseases, because diseases can disturb different plants in the environment. So one of the aims of a plant breeder is to solve that problem of plant disease by producing plants that are resistant to diseases. Another aim of a plant breeder is to produce plants that are resistant to pests. Pests are organisms that have destructive effects on these plants. So when pests disturb plants, they will affect their growth and development. So a plant breeder produces plants that are resistant to a lot of pests. Another aim of a plant breeder is to produce plants with better nutritional value. Studies have shown in plant genetics and breeding that scientists have developed different plants with improved nutritional value in order to meet up with the nutritional requirements of people in the society. All these options are aims of plants breeding. All these options are aims of a plant breeder. The next question says, which of the following is not a good strategy of solving the problem of food shortage through plant breeding? A. Production of plants that survive environmental stress. B. Production of plants that mature early. C. Production of plants that are susceptible to diseases. D. Production of plants that are resistant to pests. In this question, the correct answer is C. Production of plants that are susceptible to diseases. These plants that are susceptible to diseases are plants that are easily affected by diseases, and this production of plants that are susceptible to diseases is not a good strategy of solving the problem of food shortage through plant breeding. So plant breeders don't intend in producing plants that will be susceptible to diseases. Rather, they intend producing plants that are resistant to diseases. The next question says, which of the following is the aim of an animal breeder? A. To produce animals that grow rapidly. B. To produce animals that are resistant to diseases. C. To produce animals with increased egg production capacity. D. All of the above. In this question, the correct answer is D. All of the above. There are different aims of improving animals through animal breeding processes. One of the aims of an animal breeder is to produce animals that grow rapidly. And studies have shown that animal breeders also produce animals that are resistant to diseases. Another aim of an animal breeder is to produce animals with increased egg production capacity. All these options are different aims of an animal breeder, because when there is production of animals that have high growth rates, those animals will do better in the environment. The next question says, the ability of an animal breeder to practice animal breeding successfully depends on his or her outstanding knowledge of dash. A. Animal reproductive system. B. Plant excretory system. C. Plant reproductive system. D. Plant respiratory system. In this question, the correct answer is A. Animal reproductive system. The knowledge of animal reproductive system is highly essential to animal breeders for them to practice animal breeding successfully. So when a breeder don't have the knowledge of animal reproductive system, he or she will find it difficult to breed animals in such a way that to get a breed that can survive stressful conditions and other external factors will be difficult. So the ability of an animal breeder to practice animal breeding successfully depends on his or her outstanding knowledge of animal reproductive system. The next question says, a cross between buffalo and domestic cow produces an offspring called dash. A. Rats. B. Rabbit. C. Cattle. D. Chicken. In this question, the correct answer is C. Cattle. This cattle is the offspring produced from a cross between bull buffalo and domestic cow, and studies have shown that this offspring called cattle has high genetic quality or has high genetic superiority compared to the two parents. This offspring has a lot of interesting genetic traits in it that makes it better compared to the two parents. The next question says, the knowledge of genetics is applied in production of animals with greater milk yield. A. True. B. False. C. All of the above. D. None of the above. In this question, the correct answer is A. True. The knowledge of genetics is applied in production of animals with greater milk yield. So studies have shown in animal genetics and breeding that the knowledge of genetics is highly useful in producing animals with greater milk yield. For instance, there are some breeds of cattle that have interesting traits compared to other cattle. So when scientists discover these traits, they will now apply the knowledge of genetics in transferring or in crossing two different parent organisms in order to get an offspring that will have a better genetic interest or a better genetic traits that the individual need. So in the area of milk production, there are different animals that produce milk. Cow is one of them. So a good knowledge of genetics is highly useful in producing these animals with greater milk yield. The next question says, a breeding exercise that involves the artificial introduction of semen into the reproductive system of a female animal is best described as dash. A. Artificial insemination. B. Natural insemination. C. Polyploidy. D. Diploidy. In this question, the correct answer is A. Artificial insemination. Artificial insemination is a breeding exercise that involves the artificial introduction of semen into the reproductive system of a female animal. So in this process, there will be no natural mating in the animals. So a scientist or an individual will collect the sperm cells from the male animal and inject it into the reproductive system of the female animal. And once fertilization is successful, the female animal will get pregnant and later produce offspring. So this artificial insemination involves the knowledge of genetics in transferring semen containing interesting genes into the female reproductive system of the animal. The next question says, the knowledge of genetics is applied in dash. A. Medicine. B. Agriculture. C. Genetic engineering. D. All of the above. In this question, the correct answer is D. All of the above. Studies have shown that the knowledge of genetics is highly useful in the field of medicine, is useful in the field of agriculture, and it is also useful in genetic engineering. So the knowledge of genetics is applied in different professions such as agriculture, medicine, genetic engineering, etc. The next question says, in medicine, the knowledge of genetics is applied in dash. A. Blood transfusion. B. in the determination of paternity of a baby. C. It is applied in development of test tube babies. D. All of the above. In this question, the correct answer is D. All of the above. In medicine as a profession, the knowledge of genetics is applied in blood transfusion. Blood transfusion is the process of transferring blood from one person to another, and research have shown that before blood transfusion is done, scientists will look into the genetic makeup of the recipients to know whether his or her biological system is compatible with the blood that he or she wants to receive. So when there is a problem, or when there is incorrect or incompatible blood transfusion, it can lead to the death of the recipients. Studies have shown that the knowledge of genetics is applied in the determination of paternity of a baby. So when there is dispute concerning the biological father of a baby, scientists will apply the knowledge of genetics in tracing the biological father of a baby. The knowledge of genetics is applied in medicine in developing test tube babies, especially in a situation where a woman is having fallopian tube challenges or issues. So scientists apply the knowledge of genetics in the field of medicine in developing test tube babies. Success have been recorded in all these areas, all these options. So all these options are different applications of knowledge of genetics in the field of medicine. The next question says, the knowledge of genetics is applied in insulin production in bacteria. A. True. B. False. C. All of the above. D. None of the above. In this question, the correct answer is A. True. The knowledge of genetics is applied in insulin production in bacteria. Studies have shown that during genetic engineering, insulin can be made from bacteria. So through genetic engineering, scientists can inoculate the genes that help in insulin production in bacteria, and that bacteria or those bacteria will begin to produce insulin, which is highly useful in solving diabetic problems in people. So through the applications of the knowledge of genetics, insulin production is possible or is made easier in bacteria as the engineered organism. So when scientists apply the knowledge of genetics, they can get or production of insulin can occur in bacteria, but this thing is done through what we call genetic engineering, which is an interesting scientific process. The next question says, in marriage, the knowledge of genetics is applied in marriage counseling in dash the incidence of hereditary diseases. A. In reducing the incidence of hereditary diseases. B. In increasing the incidence of hereditary diseases. C. All of the above. D. None of the above. In this question, the correct answer is A. Reducing the incidence of hereditary diseases. So in marriage, the knowledge of genetics is applied in marriage counseling in reducing the incidence of hereditary diseases. There are different hereditary diseases such as sickle cell anemia. So when the father and the mother are carriers of the genes of sickle cell anemia, through counseling they will be directed on what to do, especially in the area of that marriage. So a situation whereby the mother is the carrier of a gene that controls sickle cell anemia, and the father is also a carrier, they will be advised not to continue with the marriage so that they will not produce a baby that will have sickle cell anemia. So in marriage, the knowledge of genetics is applied in marriage counseling in reducing different hereditary or different incidents of hereditary diseases that may disturb the offspring when they are born. The next question says, the knowledge of genetics is applied in crime detection. A. True. B. False. C. All of the above. D. None of the above. In this question, the correct answer is A. True. The knowledge of genetics is applied in crime detection. For instance, when a girl is raped and she's suspecting a particular male as the rapist, scientists can evaluate this situation by applying the knowledge of genetics. So through DNA analysis. So through DNA analysis, scientists can trace the source of the crime, and finally justice will be done to that situation. If this is the first time you are watching our video, if this is the first time you are joining this channel, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel so that you can study other topics that we have treated in many of our videos. You can also make your comments in this video.